Rolex or Cartier, which should you buy? I never fully understood such comparisons because, well, look at these. They're not exactly twins. But I think now, as we're about to enter 2026, there are a few interesting points to consider when choosing either a Rolex or a Cartier. Let's dive in. If you're looking for your next watch, check out Swiss Connection watches for new or pre-owned watches with new arrivals every week. Thanks. Both brands have overlapping similarities, especially when it comes to heritage and brand recognition. But what makes comparing these two brands fascinating are the differences. Take these two watches, for example. Both the Santos and the GMT-Master II were born out of aviation necessity, with the Rolex GMT-Master officially debuting in 1955 for Pan Am airline pilots, and the Santos created all the way back around the birth of modern aviation in 1904, designed by Louis Cartier for his pilot friend Alberto Santos Dumont. This wasn't just the first pilot's watch, developed well over 2 decades before the legendary Flieger watches, but it was also one of the first wristwatch developed for men. Cartier wasn't just trendy, it was decades ahead of its time. This heritage of Cartier is as significant as the Speedmaster's role during the moon landing is for Omega. It cemented the icon status and watchmaking legitimacy for the French brand, giving it an edge over several other high jewelry houses that also manufacture timepieces. Now, even within travel complications like GMT and world timers, there are many distinct variations, but if you think of any GMT watch with a rotating bezel, the blueprint of those will typically trace back to the GMT Master, with its legible dial, bicolored, bidirectional rotating bezel, and often a contrasting GMT hand to indicate a second time zone. Since the Rolex GMT Master was developed much later and in the golden years of modern commercial aviation, it is associated with modernity, a functional and reliable tool used by those that travel often. The Santos, on the other hand, is much more nostalgic, a more style and design-driven timepiece that continues to tell the story of its past to anyone that wears it. This leads to the question, which should you choose? Which one is better? Rolex is the obvious choice for collectors, and it goes far beyond the enthusiast circles. The enthusiasts are an adventurous bunch. We like to explore, we get bored quickly, we nitpick on things like water resistance and lug to lug. We love brands that challenge the norm, that go against the grain, especially against the slow-moving legacy brands. But many people that continue to buy Rolex are not necessarily enthusiasts. They may not even be collectors. Many are just people who want a good watch. And as boring and unromantic as that may sound, the numbers suggest that this positioning is exactly what makes Rolex sit in another league than everyone else around them. But the Swiss brand still comes with its own fair share of challenges. You won't find many 24-year-olds with a little bit of savings walking into a Rolex boutique and exiting with a Land Dweller or even a Submariner. You essentially have to enter a system, a universe where you have to build a purchase history, where there are levels, and to obtain a certain watch, you may have to buy your way up to that level. This is also why many continue to pick these up in the secondary market, because to them, paying a little extra is far better than waiting months and sometimes more and ending up buying a handful of watches that they never wanted just to get that one that they did. Now, I'm not saying one way is better than the other, both paths have their strengths, and Rolex didn't invent this model. The rules of supply and demand in the luxury space gave rise to such practices. We see this in the car industry, in the high fashion industry. It's not exactly something new. But if you look at it from a younger collector's perspective, with their excitement to buy their first luxury watch, this whole thing may feel underwhelming and expensive. And that's where Cartier comes in. The growing popularity of Cartier watches, especially among the younger generation of collectors, speaks volumes on how the brand's uniqueness in form is such a strong appealing factor. Yes, you don't buy a Cartier for its movement specifications. Many don't even care if their tank has a quartz or a mechanical caliber beating inside, as long as it's a Cartier, as long as it looks and feels and wears like a Cartier. That's all that matters. This fact alone has for many years kept the enthusiasts looking elsewhere for luxury timepieces. But now that we have in a way reached the peak when it comes to technical specifications in watches, collectors and enthusiasts are looking for something different, something that's a bit more daring, a bit more avant-garde, but still timeless with a strong brand recognition and identity that they'd be proud to own. An aspirational watch that's not a Rolex. Plus, it's one of those brands that has an accessible gateway, with the Tang having a starting price that is not too dissimilar to Tudor's, but at the same time, Cartier is one strong brand. It's not like Seiko and Grand Seiko, Tudor and Rolex. There is simply no alternative. It's just Cartier, with their most affordable watch starting just under $3,000 or about 15,000 Malaysian ringgit. Rare pieces going all the way up to over $1 million at auctions. The visual identity of a Cartier is so much more distinct than that of a Rolex. Even my wife, who isn't really into watches, no matter how much I try to lecture her about the genius of spring drive, even she has been able to identify Cartiers on people's wrists. That speaks volumes on how different a Cartier and Rolex comes across to regular people outside of the enthusiast bubble. The Rolex will be perceived as either just a watch or a very expensive watch, depending on the knowledge of the individual you ask. This doesn't have to be a negative because you don't love your Rolex or Tudor because they are different, you love them because they're yours. That connection you build with the watch makes it special. But a Cartier is a different beast altogether. Its identity is unmistakable. With the first thing most will pick up on at a glance is not the price, but how good it looks on the wrist. And I'm talking about any Cartier, be it a Tank, a Santos, or a Panthère. It's often the small refinements that we take for granted that give these watches their unique identity. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, it really helps. Also, do check out Swiss Connection watches for your next watch. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.